Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we've got the pleasure of watching Jakub Wrzala playing in arguably the best heavy tank in the game, at least how if you were to look only at the statistics on Tomato GG and how it's performing with the players. It is the VK7201K, aka the VKK. This is a tier 10 Clan Wars reward tank that basically combines the armor of a Panzer 7, although it's slightly better with regards to the side weak points, with the gun that you're going to have on the E100, although its speciality has to be that it has more heat pen than the gun on the E100, up to 350. This means this thing just absolutely bludgeons its way through whatever is in front of the vehicle, at least unless it's incredibly thick armor or it's some kind of spaced protection. This combination of 750 alpha, great heat pen, and the armor of the Panzer 7, which is very good. It does have its issues, but it's very good. It just makes this thing an absolute juggernaut. And since Wargaming nerfed the Chieftain and they nerfed the 279E, this vehicle just remains. Will this thing be the next on the chopping block? Definitely Wargaming could shave off 20 to 30 millimeters off the heat penetration in this tank. And while it would significantly affect the statistics of the vehicle, I think a lot like with the 279E, it would still be a fairly okay tank. But yeah, I really do feel like this is one of the biggest gold noob tanks of all of the gold noob tanks. And luckily, Jakub is going to be showing you exactly what the heat rounds on this vehicle are capable of. So Jakub is going for a semi-firepower, semi-durability build here. No faffing about. This vehicle, as hard as it gets to be able to get inside World of Tanks, outside of possibly something like the Chieftain, so they're putting a bond rammer, bond vert stabs, and also a bond durability device, meaning this vehicle has just shy of 3,000 hit points for the enemy team to be able to get through. And that's if they're able to get through the 240 millimeters of hull armor that this thing has on the front, 160 on the side, and 200 millimeters of frontal turret armor. But the turret on this tank, it kind of be a little bit hit or miss, really, especially if they manage to hit just to the left or just to the right of the gun with the mantlet. It can be a little bit awkward, especially against decent pen AP and APCR. Really, your only chance with this vehicle is either to just get its broadside or hit its lower plate, but you're going to have to hit its lower plate with very decent gold pen, like 300, even from an angle like this. There's a chance that it won't be going in. And that is just what's amazing about playing this vehicle. You can get caught out without having something to be able to hide behind, and you just feel like you've got a very good chance of ricocheting shells, even gold rounds from your opponents at tier 10. Not always, but quite a lot of the time. And when you combine that with, oh man, just these big old hits landing against Jakub's opponents, then this thing is an absolute monster. It's a little bit controversial, this vehicle, now compared to something like a Panzer 7, because funnily enough, Wargaming, when they created this tank, they haven't made the weak point on the side insanely better than the Panzer 7, but it is still measurably better. 10 to 20 millimeters on most of the side weak point means this thing's oh so much better for side scraping. Although, having got one of these through playing maneuvers and bidding, I think it was something stupid, was it like 40 or 50,000 bonds to be able to get this tank? On my free-to-play account, I've been playing this one. I know, weird, right? A tank that I don't have on my main account, but I have on my free-to-play account. And just like what Jakub is doing here, sometimes one of the best things to do with this vehicle is not to try and side scrape, but just to stick the front plate out and just bait your opponents into shooting it. And then when you see them aiming at it, you reverse back around the corner while swinging it out to just bait. So Jakub there showing you that even the mantlet isn't that particularly wonderful against 350 heat pen, and if you over angle the mantlet like that, then the mouse is going to struggle. And there we go. Gold round bouncing off the side and the tracks there. With Jakub just baiting that mouse into still shooting that thick side armor. We've got 160 millimeters of side armor. It's kind of a lot like the side of an IS-4 within that regard. An absolute tubber of a tank. And when you're up to 5,500 damage, and you haven't even taken a single hit point of your own hit points lost, you know that some kind of magic is about to happen. And considering you've seen the title and the thumbnail on the video, ladies and gents, if this is arguably one of, if not the best heavy tanks in the entire game, if this is going to be world record damage in this vehicle, oh man, you've got something to look forward to today. Alright, well, that ST1 didn't very much look forward to that clutch shot right round the corner there. through the lower plate, I believe, of the ST1, although with 350 heat pen, you could probably bludgeon your way through the upper hull. And that's what's just outrageous about these rounds. Okay, so Jakob's team is not doing very well here. Imagine being up to 6,000 damage, make that nearly 7,000 damage, and your team is still down on damage by 7,000. That is demoralizing. Jakob is pretty much stopping this from being one of those just horrendous snowball rounds, right? If Jakob wasn't in this game, his team might have 5,000 hit points or less, considering that he's hoarding the 3,000 they have. But they're not playing selfishly. They're playing bold inside this game. They're investing with 7,000 damage in the 5.5 minutes this battle has gone on. But if you were to take away the 7,000 damage that Jakob would have done to the enemy team, their hit bar would be more like up here, and it would be probably kind of more like one of those 15 zeros, or maybe more like a 12-0 kind of game here. Well, not 12-0. Maybe like a 15-3 kind of round of World of Tanks. Now, the only thing that I don't like about Jakob's build here is that having played this thing on my free-to-play account, it is slow. And without using a really special turbo on this tank, it is not getting anywhere quickly. Luckily, Wargaming have given a field mod to this vehicle where it actually gets an extra 2 kilometers an hour faster forward. So it's 33 base, will go up to 35, which will go up to 36 if you're using engineering. And then if you're using a Bond turbo on this thing, like a lot of people will, you'll actually have a fairly okay power to weight ratio and be able to go at 42 kilometers an hour, which is terrifying considering this vehicle does weigh 120 tons. So if you do put controlled impact on it and you give your opponents a ram or two, then they're not going to be very right for this world. So Jakob finishes off the standard B, etching their damage total over 8,000 with not a single hit point lost, boys and girls. You know that some miracle still has to happen for Jakob to be able to come back into this hit point deficit. It's a 3 versus 6. They're down by 6,000 hit points. And unfortunately, while it was all good and well when the VKK just got to sit in the alleyway and just wait for Jakob's opponents to wash over them with their flanks secured, now unfortunately, as the numbers dwindle in this 2 versus 6, flanking is probably going to have to happen. Oh, a whiff there, unfortunately. Just not quite enough lead against the Char Future 4 there, and that's where the awful shell velocity, 757 on those AP rounds and 606 on the heat rounds, comes into play. Good for bludgeoning your way through close quarters combat tanks that aren't moving. Harder to be able to give lead against rapid, sneaky French vehicles. And the Char Future 4, Jakob now losing their first bit of hit points to an Object 704, who is clearly sniping in from the flanks, but they don't have time to worry about that because the CS-63 is going after them. So the CS-63 fires at the STRV-1030. The STRV connects a shell, reducing the CS-3's hit points from full, and with Jakob pushing 765 in, he needs to get away from the rear, and this is what happens when 120 tons lands against a Polish vehicle. Yeah, that's 500 ramming damage, and Teddy Gamer is no more, with the STRV-1030 putting in a useful second shell. So, now up to 9,400 damage, Jakob's on 5 kills, and they've really got to just start destroying their opponents before their numerical advantage comes into play, because as soon as someone's behind the VKK, doesn't really matter how thick the frontal or side armor of this vehicle is. If they get the side flat or they get the rear, it's not going to be good news. Luckily, the STRV-1030 provides a distraction, and that leaves an opening. It also means that Jakob knows exactly where the enemy 2 tank destroyers are, and that is they're making flanking plays. Now Jakob needs to make a decision. Do you fall back and try to reverse and maybe let the UDES go round and then flank you from there? Or should you just plow forwards? And with the WTF Panzer IV appearing to Jakob's side, that means there's only one way, and that is to go forwards. Also, by staying down there, Jakob maybe baited the objects to be able to try and flank him there, which now means that hopefully if he finishes off the UDES, they're going to be able to make the flanking play. So Jakob baits forwards, baits backwards. Just got to pray that Wargaming's got that gun in the correct place, as there has been a bug in the game for the last couple of months. Luckily, no disaster there, and now Jakob's over 11,000 damage with 2,200 hit points. So the Object 704, unpainted, lurches forwards, somehow manages to pen Jakob, I believe by just firing right through the front of the turret with a regular round there, but with 280 millimeters of pen, the standard rounds on that tank are pretty good. Jakob doesn't quite manage to ram the 704 hard enough, using the 704 as cover. thinks about shooting the WTF Panzer IV and maybe trying to ram the 704 to death. Instead, finishes off the 704 and uses the fairly okay top speed of the tank there to be able to get away from the WTF Panzer IV. Now, Jakob with 12,000 damage, their name finds themselves in a 1 versus 2 against a full health WTF Panzer IV, and the last time the Object 268 version 5 was spotted was also on full hit points. How is the VKK going to handle this? Try and get some distance? Try and stop any flanking from happening? Maybe load some HE shells to be able to kill the WTF Panzer IV in 2 shots. Remember, with the HE, that's 950 alpha damage, meaning that the 1,600 base hit points the WTF Panzer IV has won't be able to hold up against more than 2 shells with the HE. So Jakob switches there, I believe, to a heat round. The 268 version 5 is behind Jakob, misses what appears to be a heat round from behind, and now Jakob has to make a decision. Do you go after the 268 version 5 or do you go after the WTF Panzer IV? Jakob confidently reloads an HE round, comes around the corner, manages to ram the WTF Panzer IV, hits them for a low roll, unfortunately, and that means they're going to require another shot. However, by kind of shepherding the WTF Panzer IV in front of the VKK, that means that now, with 200 hit points left, maybe they can manage to bounce the 268 version 5. The 268 version 5 spams a heat round. Now Jakob's going to be able to put HE round through the top of the turret, and now, with 14,000 damage dealt, they're going to find themselves in a 1 versus 1 against a full health Object 268 version 5, who was firing heat, so they've got to try and get that gun in the way. Oh my word, Jakob actually gets tracked. They're going to fire a shell. Oh no, it got absorbed by the gun and the weak point. That's a disaster, and oh no, it looks like the 268 version 5 does manage to put a shell right through the front of the VKK. And this hero game that I bet you thought we were going to see something like 16,000 damage here, boys and girls. Absolute heartbreak at the end of the round. With 14,000 damage dealt and 9 frags to their name, can you believe that Jakob couldn't go the distance here? Real unfortunate that even with the AP loaded there, they were unable to go through the weak point of the 268 version 5, and fairly unfortunate that the mantler on the VKK let them down against that big old AP shell from the 704, and then let them down from what was a heat round from the Object 268 version 5. But live by the sword, die by the sword. The VK has some of the most dangerous heat rounds in the game on a heavy tank, if not the most dangerous heat rounds on any heavy tank in the game. But they still pale in comparison compared to a tank destroyer having 395 heat. And no matter how much of an inferno Jakob was creating in this game, just wasn't enough to get the win. This was one of the biggest heartbreaks I have ever seen. Can you believe it? 14,000 damage dealt, and that's not enough to win. That was 7 times what anyone else on Jakob's team was able to achieve. With a Radley Walters medal for those 9 kills. And even though they didn't have a premium account, they pretty much broke even, although that was with the Holiday Ops bonus and some kind of mission. Jakob, my absolute condolences, but also congratulations on the highest damage that anyone's ever been able to achieve, at least on the What Record website. A staggering result, which is an immense achievement considering how competitive this vehicle is inside World of Tanks. And for all of you out there, this is the vehicle that I would probably recommend you pick first if you ever have an opportunity to play maneuvers. So Jakob, congratulations to you, and thank you so much for uploading your monster game on the What-Record website. I thoroughly enjoyed it, which is why I wanted to commentate on it on YouTube today, and I really hope all of you out there enjoyed this video as well. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments down below what was your biggest heartbreak and why in World of Tanks history. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.